Yes and no. It was my first published children's book. And I say that to say that I had illustrated and co-wrote 2 children's books that were never published. And they're about 12 or 14 years old. But then a publishing company came to me and asked me if I was interested, and absolutely, I would consider this to be my first published children's book. It's a full circle thing. I've always had a love for children's books. I've always collected children's books. Ezra Jack Keats, A Snowy Day, changed my life and influenced even what I do as a fine artist today. I make a living as a fine artist. And it was interesting to look at 20 years ago, revisiting a book that I saw when I was 5 or 6 years old and seeing how the textures and the patterns and the collaging that he incorporated in the children's books are very much what I do in my fine art. And I don't think there was not a conscious decision, very much a subconscious decision, but clearly, all these years later, that influenced what I'm doing. But I think more importantly is just like this need and this want to be involved with this being my legacy. I care more about the idea that people might know me from something that I've done, like one of these children's books, as opposed to some fine art piece of art, which is very personal. I find both of these disciplines to be important, but I think that this is what I want to be remembered for. I don't think I focused a lot when it came to painting the series of illustrations as the story of apartheid. I think that the 2 things that piqued my interest, made it interesting to me, made it enjoyable, was the culture of South Africa and the many tribes and the many styles and the many languages, the textures, the patterns, and always knowing, I've known forever who Miriam Makeba was, and so the powerful voice, the powerful performer, and so it was more of a story of her. And I think that might be an odd answer, but I've always been, and most of my work is about the civil rights movement and the journey as Africans. But when it came to doing this book, it was really about her story, her power, her strength, her confidence, what got her to where she was and able to travel the world and tell everyone about apartheid. First of all, to be 50-something years old and getting the New Talent Award is something. It was truly an honor. It was a complete and total surprise. I have a couple of friends that have been in the business for a long time, and when they made the announcement, my phone is blowing up and I get this phone call and everyone is really excited, and I have no idea what this means. I've never followed it like that. I've seen the medals or the tags that are on published children's books, and I found myself gravitating to a lot of them because I'm thinking that this got special attention. It must be well illustrated, and let me go check it out. Or those were the ones I often bought, but it was never my goal to win any kind of award. And quite frankly, I didn't feel once the project was completed that I had done anything worthy of the award. And so it was an honor and humbling, and it made me really take my approach in the future more seriously. Yes. Hi. I'm working on 4 new projects, and one in which I've illustrated and wrote the story for. I've been up all night finishing the type drawings for a book called Rewrite the World. And it's about a little girl who discovers journalism and how they can tell our story as a journalist. And then I have a couple of other books. I have a Nelson Mandela book that I'm working on, a civil rights movement book that I'm working on. And I just completed a book about a child who is stuck in the house on a rainy day and creates a space setup and a spaceship and everything to kind of pass his day. And so there's several projects that I'm currently working on. God and my mom. I know that I'm not here by chance, by accident. I think that everything that I've done has been an intentional move and with a goal in mind to accomplish something. And fortunately, having like a mother who continually not only challenged us, but believed in us. And like a quote that I love using is Abraham Lincoln said, "All that I am and I will ever be, I owe to my mother." I truly believe that. Had I not had the mother that I had, I would not be doing this today. And so that's where a lot of it comes from. So, you know, I think one of the things that's really important, I've had the pleasure of going to South Africa a couple of times and had the opportunity to interact with other young children in South Africa. And one of the things that I've discovered with South Africa, and it happens here, is the fact that our children don't know about the struggle. They think we're at a place where we've overcome. There's a misconception when it comes to having a black president that means we've reached the pinnacle, the height, and it's only the beginning of what our struggles, because our struggles is an ongoing thing. And I think that what I found fascinating about South Africa is that young people in South Africa, ironically, rarely know a lot about the history of Nelson Mandela, let alone somebody like Miriam Makeba. And talking to a group of young people, they had no idea who she was. And so what I'm an advocate of is pushing the narrative forward and talking more about where we have to go, and then talking about where we've come from. Because if we keep referencing kind of like where we came from and not know where we need to go or where we're going, they're gonna miss the message. So they're not gonna understand who a John Lewis is, but they can understand, like, from that struggle, who's come after and how what they've done, the people that they now focus on got there because they got there on the shoulders of a Martin Luther King or a Nelson Mandela or a Miriam Makeba, who was brave enough to do what she did. And I think that's the story. So what I would say to young people, find as much as you can about the history and about the struggle, and understand that there is comparisons. South Africans and us, they look at us sometimes and say, okay, your struggle was over with way before ours was. And that's a false story. The true story is their struggle is as fresh. Our struggle is as fresh as theirs. There's continually the battle to prove equality. And so I think that, like when you asked me earlier about illustrating the apartheid, I found that going there and going to Soweto and going to the place where this young man lost his life and many children lost their lives because police opened fire on them, I discovered even in that area where these kids live in that community, they don't know the story. And so it is important to continually remind them, but also move it forward so you can start thinking, okay, from that, you're here, and now you can move it forward, but never believe that the struggle's over with. You know what? See, that's a good one. But it's also like, it's one of those that is an ongoing conversation, because it's still incredibly staggering low amount of black artists and writers that do black children's books. Two things are happening with black children's book, and as much as I am a student of history, is that we keep going back, and children's books and people who are producing black children's books today have a tendency to go again back to history, about the civil rights movement, about the Sojourner Truth or Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass. And we talk about like there is at least 20 books written on every one of these people. So now we need modern day heroes. You know, and like what I thought about when I walked away after talking to a group of children in South Africa about the Miriam Makeba, and like, who all knows the Miriam Makeba? It was only the adults that say, yay, the children like, okay. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe if we back the story up, it's about a child today who wants to be a singer, and their influence is Miriam Makeba. Because now you're introducing children that don't know who Miriam is to today, bringing it forward. You know what I mean? And so, with that in mind, I think I'm trying to remember what the question was.
How important it is to have illustrators to come?
See, there is like, I want to say there's like over 3,000 children's books produced every year. Some less than 10% are children's books about black people. Of that 10%, less than 2% are illustrated and written by black writers and illustrators. They're rarely paired up. It's either a black writer and a white illustrator, or a black illustrator and a white writer. but it's never black and black. And so I'm very much about, let's find some black writers, they're out there. Publishing companies are always saying that we can't find them, they're out there. We can't find black artists, they're out there. And so, some of them are getting major, like there's a couple of local people here that are just doing incredible stuff. Frank Morris is a perfect example of that. And Frank was the one that's been telling me forever that I needed to do this. And once I did it, it was like, I gotta do more of this. But it's important that we have people that can put a context to what is being written. But even more important, there is going to be a controlled narrative if it's written by someone of another color. So if it's a black person writing about us, they understand it. If there's a black person illustrating us, they live it. And so I think that becomes really important. That's a good, yeah, see, that's well done. Yeah, very much so. I have a obligation to give. I have an obligation. I just hosted a show that opened last week called Inspiration, and this is a fine art show, and it's a Black History show, but it was like, I don't like doing Black History stuff. And like, because you know what, we are Black History every day of the year. Why do we gotta focus on this month? And why are you gonna have 20 people calling me wanting to do a show this time of year, but you're not calling me the rest of the year? So it's like, but I got a Douglasville Cultural Center, Art Center contacted me because they wanted me to do a show. I told them initially, the timing's wrong, I'm really busy right now. I'm like, wait a minute, back up. There is so much talent here in Atlanta. Why don't I reach out to the young talent and see who would be interested in doing an invitational show where I'm gonna pick out 18 artists and you can exhibit your work. The show is called Inspiration, but inspiration is not about let me be the inspiration. You all inspire me. So this show is about how you all have inspired me to continue doing what I'm doing. You know, and then I said, you know what? Mentioning earlier again, it's like my mother. I decided, you know what? I'm gonna come up with cash prizes. I'm going to give first, second, third, and fourth prizes and call it Irma Award. Irma being my mother, because my mother supported me and encouraged me when she didn't even know how I was ever going to make a living as an artist. So in honor of her, I'm giving out something to you all to say, keep doing what you're doing. And then decided to give everybody else that participated a $25 gift certificate so that they can go out and continue to purchase art, supplies, or whatever, so they can continue to kind of fulfill their dream. So it's totally my responsibility to inspire, enlighten, encourage, challenge. And I've mentored my whole life because I'm not here by luck. I'm here because somebody saw something in me that was special.